Well, we have this race now very close, and we have Janice in the lead with Haley closing, and we're not set to make a prediction other than it is going to be very, very close. So, Vince Haley, good to have you with us.
Thanks, John. Glad to be back on.
Now, yesterday, Obama's EPA, which is going around the country, basically now implementing these new ozone rulings, there was a legal challenge to it. One in Virginia basically saying, look, if these go down, it's going to bankrupt counties and municipalities in Virginia that simply can't comply with them. They're not reasonable. And by the way, why is the federal government mandating what municipalities, counties, and the state of Virginia does? But judge struck that down and said the EPA can basically do whatever it wants. What say you?
Well, the ruling was about the standards that were put in place in 2008. And you had several states protesting how the EPA determined whether they were in compliance or not. And what happens is the courts have this huge amount of deference that they show to agencies. And this is a problem, across the government, that the courts give way too much deference to agencies and their determinations. And the same thing with Congress. Congress has been ineffective at reining in these federal agencies. So we have this costly mandate from 2008. There's been in many cases compliance across the country. And in this case, you had some states challenging, the determinations. Now, what this really brings to light, though, is even something that's even more bothersome, frustrating, brings many people to anger, and that is that the EPA is trying to enforce a higher standard on ozone. So what is at issue in yesterday's ruling was a standard that was put in place for ozone at what they call, a level of 75 parts per million. Well, now the EPA wants to go even further, and they proposed a new rule to take the ozone standard even higher and make it some 60 to 65 or 70, and that is hugely costly in a country in which we haven't even attained the 2008 standard. So when even the 2008 standard has not been attained, the EPA is now raising the standard even higher. That's what's going on right now, wholly aside from that lawsuit. And that's where, at the state level, at the federal level, everybody needs to shout and say, enough already. We can't afford that. We have a national economy that's flatlined, right? It contracted. We now have data from the first quarter that it's flat. And now on top of that, the impact in Virginia from a new standard that the EPA is proposing would be about 36,000 jobs a year from 2017 to 2040, or something like $45 billion a year. Well, this is cost upon our economy we can't even endure right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're getting hit from the Affordable Care Act. We're getting hit from the lower costs from an open borders policy on immigration. We have higher taxes from Obamacare. When is enough already? And look, the theme of my campaign is that Virginia has to push back very aggressively on costly federal mandates where it can. And I've talked about this other plan of the EPA, which would raise our electricity rates by 30%. So, look, we need to stop these costly mandates. And the whole idea is we have to reward work. We have to allow people to pursue happiness and the opportunities that best benefits and leverages individual skills and talents for a better future. That's the job of an elected representative. And I tell you, people are frustrated out there because they don't believe their elected representatives are listening to them. And what they want is someone who's going to stand up and fight all this stuff. And that's what I want to do. I want to fight all these costly mandates that make it harder for people to get ahead, both for themselves and for their families. And that's the challenge of our elected representatives.
Well, it's very frustrating, Vince, for a lot of people sitting back and saying, look, if all this goes through, there's counties and municipalities in Virginia that are going to be bankrupt. It's going to affect businesses. But when you talk about raising electricity rates 30%, Vince, what that really hammers is people that don't have any money. They're on fixed incomes. They're on Social Security, are seniors. There's a lot of people in your district struggling right now. They live paycheck to paycheck trying to make ends meet. we're looking at a 35% increase in electricity. Who is fighting for them?
They need the representatives to fight for them, and that's what I'm proposing to do. Look, these things can only get passed if people aren't paying attention. But when you raise a flag, if you will, when you rally people and point out the costs that are involved, they sort of stand up and listen. And you know what? There's going to be a confrontation. There's going to be tension. There's going to be fights. There's going to be people back and forth, in a heated argument. But that's what you need for people to realize what are the stakes. And the stakes that issued here for Virginia and across the country, but here in Virginia, and that's what I'm running for, to represent people in Virginia, for the livelihoods in Virginia, they need to realize that the federal government is trying to impose on them a dramatic increase in costs. And you're right. It's going to affect the most vulnerable in our state, the poor, those with low incomes, seniors who are on fixed incomes. And remember, what are fixed incomes? Fixed incomes means when you have additional costs coming into your life, you don't have an income that can expand with it. And so seniors are going to be at the brunt of this irrational, ideologically driven extremism from the EPA and a federal Congress that so far has been impotent to stop it. Now, we have to stop it on this EPA Clean Power Plan. They don't have the authority to do that. States are suing. They're going to be successful. And the question is, are we going to stop and not comply with it now before 8 years go by in a lawsuit, at the end of which, utilities like Dominion will be forced to change because they can't afford to risk a bad outcome? Well, I'm saying we don't have to do that. We have to make a political statement in the legislature, and the people have to be rallied to stop this. And I think they will stop this. The governor is on the wrong side of this. Governor McAuliffe is for raising taxes, energy taxes, effective energy taxes on our seniors and our poor. And he's also for, what's he for? He's for a 30% electricity rate increase that will ripple through the economy, and everything will become more expensive. If he's made to confront that by the people, he's got to back off. He can't sustain that. It's unsustainable. And the job of elected representatives, in this case, Republican representatives, is to point this cost out to people and make the governor back off. Virginians have to run Virginia, not bureaucrats at the EPA.
Okay, but the reality of it, Vince Haley, is that if you were to be in the Senate, the Senate of Virginia is supposed to be more of a collegial body. Everybody gets along. They're polite to each other. And now what you're saying is basically elect me, Vince Haley, and I'm going to try to stand up to the EPA and make a big issue out of this. I don't think that's going to play with some of the leadership in there. How would you handle that?
Look, I like to play nice with people I work with, and I would like to play nice with my colleagues, but I'm less interested in my colleagues than the people I represent. And the people I represent in this district in Henrico and parts of Henrico and parts of Hanover, they're not going to put up with it. The challenge of leadership is to rally the people, right, and to say to them, and have the people say to the elected representatives, this is the way we want to go. Look, I don't think I can win a battle if I'm just talking to, colleagues in a Republican caucus. But we can win the battle, and the other Republican colleagues in the caucus, they'll see it. They'll understand the cost. They're not going to be for imposing costs on their seniors in their district. They'll lose their jobs. They'll lose their jobs. If they don't represent the interests of the poor, the seniors on fixed income in their district, they're not going to be reelected. And what they will, when they see the justness of this cause, I'm sure they'll join, not just with me, but with everybody else who sees the costs that are coming down. And look, the reason we don't like these high costs is because we want to live better lives without having to spend all our money on government compliance with irrational regulations. Okay? And look, it's not enough just to do two months in the General Assembly and think that we can solve all our problems. We have to be out there on shows like yours and other venues, and this is what elected representatives do in Virginia. It wouldn't just be me, but the whole year long making the case. Because then when you make the case and you get the people with you, it makes it easier in the General Assembly, right, in the General Session, because you've already got a public consensus behind you. I propose we develop a public consensus that we will reject the EPA's effort to raise our electricity rates and hurt our poor, hurt our seniors, and frankly, hurt everybody in the Virginia economy. Look, we're already getting killed by lower wages because of an open borders policy.
Right.
We're already getting beaten down by the Affordable Care Act that has made health insurance less affordable, not more affordable. And what we know in the papers is health insurance premiums are ready to spike through the roof.
Again,
okay?
Yeah, that's correct.
And we have higher ed costs that are going through the roof, and the average Virginia comes out with $33,000 in debt. Well, that's got to be changed, too. Choice and competition is what keeps costs down. It's what innovates new services. And we across the board have to be, in a new way, very aggressive defending Virginians against this onslaught of too much government. As I wrote in my op-ed last Sunday in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, the challenge of our times is to reassert limits on government. That is the challenge of our times, because government is out of control, and it is way too much involved in our lives, and it's costing us. Look, people want to live lives where they can pursue happiness, they want to pursue God's purpose in their lives, and they want the best for their families, okay? Well, the job of an elected representative is to help them. And today, the way we help is to reassert limits on government across the board.
Okay, Vince, I got to read a text I got here from Glenn in Chesapeake. He says, Barbara Comstock needs to take a lesson from this guy. So you obviously got a fan in southeastern Virginia. I want to get to your campaign. I'm going to ask an uncomfortable question. The financials are in. You've got less than $500. It was showing cash on hand going into the final week. Is your campaign out of money? And if it is, how do you still win?
Look, we did very well in the second reporting cycle. We deploy money when we get it. In some cases, you pay in advance for things that get deployed. Look, we're going to the finish line. We're gonna have enough money to finish strong. In a sprint, I learned this in grade school. You don't slow down at the finish line. You run right through, right? And you're allowed to raise money up until the last day, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be more than well financed through this campaign, through the election day, and we are entirely focused on carrying this message that I've just described. We have to limit government so we expand freedom. Expanding freedom means what? It means more people can pursue opportunities to develop, to pursue what's the God-given talents in their lives. That's what we're doing in this campaign, and we're going to have more than enough to finish, and we're going to finish very strong.
One more minute. The Virginia Citizens Defense League, I'm a fan of theirs. They endorsed your candidacy over the other three candidates for Virginia Senate District 12. Why?
Well, I filled out their survey. I'm a big champion of the Second Amendment. As I'm a champion on expanding freedom by limiting government, I want to expand the freedom when it comes to Second Amendment rights. There are restrictions we have that are unreasonable about people with the ability to defend themselves and carry handguns. And I'm a defender for that. And, the incumbent, the former House of Delegates member, Bill Janus, he wasn't as strong on that issue. And that's why they gave me their endorsement, and I'm proud to have it. And I would say they're going to be also part of the rally I'm going to have tomorrow, a conservative grassroots get out the vote rally. Me and Silly, we're going to have that tomorrow afternoon. And you can go on our online, my website, vincehaley.com, to find the details.
What time is it? Where is it?
It's going to be from 6 to 8, and it's going to be at 4545 Ponce Tract Road. 4545 Ponce Tract Road, across from Colonial Elementary School.
All right, I'm just about out of time. Final question, in fairness to one of the other candidates. Before you sought the Republican nomination for the state Senate, did you meet with Democratic caucus leaders Dick Saslaw and Don McEachin and someone else exploring the potential of running as a Democrat?
No, I don't know them. My family doesn't know them. I talked to my wife about running. I talked to a few close friends, and that's how I started thinking about this race.
All right. Well, one of your opponents in this race allegedly did that, so I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it and figure it out. We want to thank Vince Haley for being with us